Dr. James Chen rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the blinking red light on his office terminal. Another patient request at 2 a.m. Earth Standard Time. He sighed, reaching for his half-empty coffee cup, only to find it had gone cold. As the senior xenobiologist at Starbase Medical, late-night emergencies weren't unusual, but something about this one felt different. Computer, display patient details, he mumbled, taking the sip of the cold coffee anyway. The holographic display flickered to life, and Dr. Chen nearly choked on his drink. A Xylaxian. Here. The tall, crystalline-skinned aliens hadn't visited a human medical facility in over 5 years, not since they'd declared human medicine primitive and barbaric. The door chime rang, making him jump slightly. "Enter," he called out, quickly straightening his white coat. The being that walked through the door was nothing like the proud, arrogant Xylaxians he'd studied in xenobiology texts. She. At least he assumed it was a she based on the iridescent patterns on her crystalline skin, moved with nervous energy. Her translucent fingers kept intertwining and separating, a gesture he recognized as anxiety in her species. "You are the human medical expert, Dr. Chen." Her voice had the typical musical quality of her species, but it trembled slightly. "I am," he replied, gesturing to the examination chair. "Please, have a seat." "Krax," she supplied, remaining standing. "I am Krax, daughter of Chief Scientist Virax of the Xylaxian Science Academy." Chen's heart skipped a beat. He was now dealing with Xylaxian royalty. More or less. The Science Academy ruled their society, and its chief scientist was equivalent to a king in human terms. "And what brings the daughter of Chief Scientist Virax to our humble human facility?" he asked carefully. Krax's crystalline skin flickered with patterns of deep blue. Fear, if he remembered his xenobiology correctly. "Dr. Chen, I require. I insist. You must inspect my body." Chen blinked in surprise. Xylaxians were notorious for their no-contact policies with other species. Even in medical emergencies, they refused to let alien doctors touch them. Their crystalline bodies were considered sacred, only to be handled by their own kind. "I'm sorry, but I thought your people didn't allow." "I know what my people allow," she snapped, her skin flashing red before returning to nervous blue. "I apologize for my outburst, but this is urgent. Something is happening to me, something our doctors either cannot or will not address." Chen leaned forward, professional curiosity piqued. "Can you describe your symptoms?" Krax moved closer to his desk, her movements jerky with nervous energy. "I feel changes inside, like something is growing, adapting. Our doctors scan me and say nothing is wrong, but I see them whisper. I see them send reports to my father. And then they tell me to meditate and maintain genetic purity. And you came here because humans are different," she said, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. "Your species, you adapt, you change, you embrace modification and variation. My people fear change, but I need someone who understands it." Chen sat back, studying the trembling alien before him. Everything about this situation screamed trouble. A high-ranking Xylaxian, seeking human medical help. If anything went wrong, it could trigger an interstellar incident. But as he looked at Krax, saw the genuine fear in her shifting skin patterns, he knew he couldn't turn her away. It went against everything he'd sworn as a doctor. "I'll help you," he said finally. "But I need you to understand that any examination would require direct scanning and possibly physical contact. Are you sure you're prepared for that?" Krax's skin rippled with determination, shifting to a steady green. "Human. Dr. Chen. I insist you inspect my body. Whatever the consequences, whatever my people might say. I need to know what's happening to me." As Chen stood to prepare the examination room, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to stumble into something much bigger than a simple medical mystery. The daughter of the Xylaxian chief scientist, breaking every cultural taboo to seek human help. There had to be more to this story. He just hoped he wouldn't regret finding out what it was. The examination room felt colder than usual as Dr. Chen prepared his instruments. Crax stood nervously by the biobed, her crystalline skin throwing rainbow patterns on the white walls. Every time he picked up a new scanner, she flinched slightly. "These won't hurt," he assured her, holding up the basic vital signs scanner. "We'll start with non-contact readings first." Just then, his computer terminal chimed with an urgent message. Chen's stomach dropped as he read the flashing red text. ALERT. ZYLOXIAN diplomatic vessel entering station space. Carax's skin paled to an almost transparent state. Fear in its purest form. "They found me already," she whispered. "Your father. Worse. The Genetic Purity Council." Her crystalline fingers trembled as she touched the biobed. "Please, Dr. Chen. We don't have much time." Chen quickly locked the examination room door and activated privacy protocols. He might regret this later, but right now, his patient needed him. "Lie down," he instructed, already starting the initial scan. The readings made him frown immediately. This can't be right. Carax's body temperature was far higher than the Zylaxian norm, and her crystalline structure showed microscopic changes throughout. But instead of degradation, he was seeing adaptation. "Your cellular structure is altering itself," he explained, adjusting the scanner for a deeper reading. "But it's not like any disease or infection I've ever seen. It's more like evolution, but accelerated somehow." The examination room's comm system crackled to life. "Dr. Chen." The voice was cold, formal, and distinctly Zylaxian. "This is Council Elders Ditax. You have something that belongs to us." Chen looked at Carax, who was now sitting up, her skin swirling with patterns of defiance and fear. "They don't own me," she said firmly. "Council Elder," Chen replied to the comm, keeping his voice steady. "I have a patient who came to me seeking medical assistance. Under starbase regulations and galactic medical laws, I cannot." "Human laws do not apply here," Zitax interrupted. "The girl is experiencing a cultural situation, nothing requiring your primitive expertise." Carax suddenly stood up, her voice ringing with authority she hadn't shown before. "Tell them, Dr. Chen. Show them the scans." Chen glanced at his readings again. The changes in her cellular structure were fascinating. Her crystalline matrix was becoming more flexible, more adaptable, while maintaining its strength. It was like her body was taking the best aspects of human genetic adaptability and incorporating them into Zylaxian biology. "Council Elder," he said carefully, "I'm detecting significant biological changes in Carax's cellular structure. As a medical professional, I cannot in good conscience. You will transfer all scan data to us immediately and release the girl," Zitax commanded. "Or this becomes a diplomatic incident that your small career will not survive." Chen looked at Carax, whose skin now showed patterns he'd never seen before, swirls of determination mixed with something like hope. "They're lying," she said quietly. "I'm not the only one. All across our worlds, young Zylaxians are changing. They're trying to hide it, to stop it, but they can't. And now they're afraid because a human doctor might discover the truth." The comm crackled again. "You have 5 minutes to comply, Dr. Chen. After that, we board the station." Chen straightened his back, making a decision that would either end his career or change everything. "Computer, begin recording." He faced his scanner toward Carax. "This is Dr. James Chen, Chief Xenobiologist, conducting emergency examination of patient Carax. Preliminary scans show unprecedented cellular adaptation that appears to be incorporating." He paused, looking at Carax for permission. She nodded. "Incorporating beneficial aspects of human genetic structure. This is not a disease. This is evolution." The silence from the comm system was deafening. Then alarms began blaring throughout the station. The Zylaxian ship was initiating docking procedures. Carax's skin gleamed with determination. "Now, Dr. Chen, Let me tell you why they're really afraid of humans. The station's alarm klaxons blared overhead as Dr. Chen quickly downloaded his scan data to a secure medical chip. Whatever was happening to Krax, he wasn't about to let the Zalaxian authorities delete the evidence. Your genetic structure, he said, staring at the complex data patterns scrolling across his screen. It's not just changing randomly. It's specifically adapting human DNA sequences that enhance survival. Look here. He pointed to a particularly active area. Your crystalline matrix is becoming more flexible while maintaining its strength. It's like your body is cherry-picking the best parts of human genetics. Krax's skin rippled with excited patterns. That's why they're so afraid. For centuries, the Genetic Purity Council told us we were perfect, that our crystalline form was the pinnacle of evolution. But now, she touched her arm, watching the light play through her slightly more flexible skin. Now we're changing, becoming something new, something better. The examination room door shuttered. Someone was trying to override the lock. Dr. Chen, Krax said urgently, what you're seeing in me isn't an isolated case. Across 3 Zalaxian worlds, young people are experiencing the same changes. It started 2 Earth years ago, right after first contact with humans. Chen's mind raced as he processed this information. But that would mean that merely being in proximity to humans triggers these changes. Yes. Krax's skin flickered with what looked like pride. Your species is unique in the galaxy, Dr. Chen. Your DNA isn't just adaptable, it's adaptability itself. You're like a living library of genetic potential. The door shuttered again. Warning lights flashed as someone began a security override. Chen quickly pressed a few buttons on his console, sending the scanned data to his private backup server. But why didn't your scientists report this? This kind of genetic compatibility between species is unprecedented. Because it terrifies them, Krax said, her voice bitter. The Council believes that genetic purity is what makes us superior. The idea that we might need human DNA to improve ourselves. She shook her head. They'd rather suppress the truth than admit they were wrong. The door finally slid open with a hydraulic hiss. 3 tall Zalaxian figures stepped in, their crystalline forms rigid with authority. The leader, his skin patterns marked with the complex swirls of a council elder, fixed his gaze on Krax. Your father is most disappointed, Elders Tax said coldly. Consorting with human doctors, spreading dangerous lies about genetic impurity. They're not lies. Krax's skin flashed with defiant colors. Show them, Dr. Chen. Show them the scans. Chen stepped forward, holding up his medical tablet. The changes in her cellular structure are real. And if what she says is true about other young Zalaxians. Silence. Zetax's skin flared with angry red patterns. Human medicine is primitive and unreliable. Your scans mean nothing. Then why are you here? Chen challenged, surprising himself with his boldness. If our medicine is so primitive, why did you rush a diplomatic vessel to stop one girl from getting a simple examination? The other 2 Zalaxians shifted uncomfortably, their skin patterns showing uncertainty. Stax noticed and quickly moved to take control of the situation. Enough. Krax, you will return with us immediately for proper medical treatment. And you, Dr. Chen, will surrender all scan data and forget this incident. But Chen wasn't listening anymore. He was staring at his tablet, at a detail in the scans he'd missed before. This is impossible, he muttered. What is it? Krax moved closer, ignoring Stax's disapproving glare. These genetic changes, they're not random mutations. They're too precise, too deliberate. Chen looked up at Krax, his eyes wide with realization. It's almost as if human DNA was specifically designed to be compatible with other species. Like we were meant to help others evolve. The silence that followed his words was deafening, broken only by the continued wail of the station's alarms. Even Sitax seemed stunned by this suggestion, and in that moment of shocked silence, none of them noticed the small light on Chen's computer terminal. indicating that his scan data was being downloaded somewhere else entirely. In the tense silence of the examination room, it was the soft beep of Chen's tablet that finally broke the standoff. His eyes widened as he read the incoming message. Data received. Stand by. Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, Earth Central Genetics. Stax moved faster than Chen thought possible for a crystalline being, snatching the tablet from its hands. But it was too late. The data was already gone, spreading across secure medical networks throughout human space. What have you done? Stax's skin churned with dangerous patterns of rage and fear. He didn't do anything, Crack said, stepping forward. I did. While you were breaking down the door, I used his terminal to transmit the data to every major xenobiology center in human space. Her skin glowed with triumph. The truth is out now. The two Zelaxian guards moved to grab her, but stopped when their hands passed through what they thought was Carax's arm, a hologram. The real Carax was already by the room's secondary exit, her hand on the emergency release. Another thing about these changes, she said, her skin rippling with what looked almost like amusement. They've made us much better at using your technology. Chen couldn't help but smile. While everyone had been focused on him and his tablet, Carax had quietly prepared their escape. Maybe humans weren't the only adaptable ones anymore. Stop her, Stax commanded, but Carax was already through the door, with Chen right behind her. They ran through the medical bay's back corridors, usually used for moving supplies. Behind them, they could hear the crystalline footsteps of their pursuers echoing off the metal walls. There's something else you need to know, Carax said as they ran. Something I couldn't say in front of them. The changes aren't just physical. They ducked into a maintenance alcove as a security team rushed past. Chen could feel his heart pounding. What do you mean? Some of us, we're developing abilities. Telepathic connections, emotional awareness, things our species never had before. Carax's skin swirled with complex patterns. We're not just becoming more physically adaptable. We're evolving emotionally too, learning to connect, to feel, to understand others in ways our rigid society never allowed. Chen thought about the implications. A species known for its logical, detached approach to everything, suddenly developing emotional intelligence. No wonder their leaders were terrified. How many? He asked. Thousands, maybe more. Mostly young ones, but some older Zelaxians are changing too. Those who've had the most contact with humans. She peered around the corner. My father, he's one of them. That's why he helped me escape, helped me find you. Your father. But I thought. The council thinks he sent me to a spiritual retreat. By the time they realized I was gone, I was already halfway to your station. Her skin flickered with sadness. He's probably been arrested by now. The station's speakers crackled to life. Attention all personnel. This is station security. Be on alert for two fugitives, one Zelaxian female and one human male. They are to be detained on site. We need to keep moving, Chen said. But where? Carax's skin pattern shifted to something he'd never seen before, a complex swirl of determination, hope, and what looked like excitement. The data we sent, it wasn't just medical scans. It was testimonies, stories, evidence from hundreds of changed Zelaxians who've been in hiding. Dr. Rodriguez will make sure everyone knows the truth. And then what? And then, Carax said, her crystalline form catching the emergency lights in a rainbow display, we show the galaxy that change isn't something to fear, that humans aren't a threat to genetic purity. They're the key to the next stage of evolution. For all of us. The sound of running feet echoed from both directions. They were trapped in the maintenance corridor. Carax looked at Chen, her skin now glowing with a steadied, determined light. Do you trust me, Doctor? Chen nodded without hesitation. Whatever was happening here was bigger than both of them. Good, she said, reaching for a panel in the wall. Because what I'm about to show you will change everything you think you know about my species. Carax placed her crystalline hand against the maintenance panel, and Chen watched in amazement as her fingers seemed to melt slightly, forming perfect connections with the ship's circuitry. Her skin glowed with pulses of blue light that matched the station's power systems. "The changes didn't just make us more adaptable," she explained, her voice tight with concentration. "They gave us new abilities. Like this." The panel lit up under her touch, and suddenly the station's gravity in their section reversed. Their pursuers' shouts of surprise echoed from both directions as they floated helplessly toward the ceiling. But Krax and Chen remained firmly planted on the floor. "How are you?" "Part of the new changes. We can manipulate energy fields now, including artificial gravity." She grabbed his hand. "Run." They sprinted past their floating pursuers, who spun helplessly in the zero-gravity zone. Stax's furious shouts followed them down the corridor. "The docking bay," Krax said as they ran. "There's a ship waiting. More of us. Changed ones." As they rounded the corner to the docking area, they found themselves face to face with a station security team. But before the guards could raise their weapons, something extraordinary happened. The changed Zalaxians emerged from hiding places all around the bay. Their crystalline bodies glowed with various colors, each one demonstrating different abilities. One created a barrier of pure energy. Another seemed to bend light around them, making part of the room appear distorted. "You're not alone," Chen realized, watching the display of powers. "This was planned." Krax nodded. "We've been organizing for months, building a network, finding others like us. Today wasn't just about exposing the truth, it was about showing everyone what we can become." A sleek ship decloaked at one of the docking ports, its design unlike anything Chen had seen before. "Is that a hybrid vessel?" Krax explained proudly. "Built with both Xylaxian and human technology. Another thing they didn't want anyone to know about. Some of us have been secretly working with human engineers for months." The ship's boarding ramp lowered, revealing more Xylaxians inside, their skin patterns all showing the same subtle changes as Krax's. But before they could reach it, a booming voice echoed through the bay. "Enough." Zetax appeared with a full squad of traditional Xylaxian guards, their crystalline forms rigid and unchanged. "This ends now. You're all coming back for genetic purification." "No," said a new voice, deep and resonant. From the hybrid ship stepped a tall Xylaxian, whose complex skin patterns marked him as someone of high rank. Chen heard Krax gasp. "Father." Chief Scientist Virax stood at the top of the ramp, his own skin showing the same changes as the others. "The time for hiding is over, Zetax. Our people are evolving. Fighting it will only cause more pain." "You." Zetax's skin flashed with rage. "You're supposed to be under arrest. The security forces you sent," Virax said calmly, "turned out to be quite sympathetic to our cause, especially after they started changing themselves." More Xylaxians emerged from various entrances to the docking bay. Security officers, scientists, workers, all showing signs of the change. They had infiltrated every level of their society. "Don't you see, Zetax?" Krax called out. "This was never about destroying our species. It's about helping it grow. Humans aren't our enemies. They're the key to our future." Chen watched as uncertainty crept into the patterns of Zetax's guards. They could see the truth before them. Their changed brethren weren't monsters, but evolved versions of themselves. "Dr. Chen," Virax called down, "we would be honored if you would join us. There's much work to be done, and we need human expertise to understand these changes fully." Chen looked at Krax, who nodded encouragingly. The choice was clear. This was bigger than medical research now. This was about helping guide an entire species through an unprecedented transformation. "I'd be honored," he said, and began walking up the ramp into history. Behind them, Zetax watched helplessly as his authority crumbled, while ahead, a new chapter in galactic evolution was about to begin. The hybrid ship's medical bay looked like a perfect fusion of Xylaxian crystal technology and human medical equipment. Dr. Chen stood before a holographic display showing complex DNA structures, his eyes wide with amazement at what he was seeing. "It's not random mutation," he explained to the group gathered around him. Carax and her father stood closest, their crystalline forms reflecting the blue light of the display. Human DNA isn't just compatible with Zalaxian genetics, it's like a universal key. Virax moved closer to the display, his scientific curiosity evident in his skin patterns. "Explain, Doctor." Chen manipulated the hologram, zooming in on a specific section of human DNA. "Look at this section here, what we used to call junk DNA. It's not junk at all. It contains dormant sequences that perfectly match not just Xylaxian DNA, but potentially any alien species' genetic code. Like a template," Carax said softly, watching the strands rotate. "Exactly. But here's the really interesting part." Chen brought up another display showing various genetic samples. "We've been going through the data from other changed Xylaxians. Each one shows slightly different adaptations, but they're all beneficial. It's like the human DNA knows exactly what improvements to make." A younger Xylaxian scientist named Orcs stepped forward, her skin showing patterns of realization. "That's why the changes started after first contact. Proximity to humans activated something in our own genetic code." "But that's impossible," one of the older Xylaxian scientists protested. "Such precise genetic compatibility across species. It would mean that humans were engineered." Virax finished, his voice quiet but firm. "Designed to be a living library of genetic potential for other species." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Chen felt a slight shiver run down his spine. The idea that humanity had been created for this purpose, that their famous adaptability was actually a tool meant to help other species evolve. Carax touched one of the floating DNA strands, making it spin. But who would do this? And why? Before anyone could answer, the ship's communication system crackled to life. Chief Scientist Virax, a nervous voice, said, "We're receiving transmissions from multiple Xylaxian worlds. The news about the changes, it's spreading. And sir, it's not just our people anymore." Virax's skin flickered with surprise. "Explain." "Reports are coming in from other species. The Arcturians, the Vega Collective, even the silicon-based draconids. They're all reporting similar genetic changes after prolonged contact with humans. Different adaptations for each species, but all beneficial." Chen quickly pulled up more genetic data on the display. "Computer, cross-reference all known species DNA with human genetic patterns." The hologram exploded into a complex web of connections, showing how human DNA contained compatible sequences for virtually every known alien species. "It's beautiful," Carax whispered, watching the intricate dance of genetic possibilities. "And dangerous," Virax added. "If the more conservative species learn about this, they might see humanity as a threat. Some might even want to destroy them to prevent change. Or they might try to harvest humans for their DNA," another scientist suggested grimly. Chen felt Carax's crystalline hand touch his arm. Her skin patterns showed concern, but also determination. "Then we make sure that doesn't happen. We show them that this isn't about destroying what they are. It's about becoming better versions of themselves." Virax nodded slowly, his skin showing complex patterns of decision and purpose. "Dr. Chen, I believe we need to make an announcement to the Galactic Council. But first," he turned to face the human doctor directly. "We need to understand exactly what's in that human DNA of yours. Because if we're right about this, your species isn't just part of galactic evolution. You're the key to its next phase." Chen looked around the room at the changed Xylaxians, each one a testament to humanity's unexpected role in the galaxy's development. Whether they were created as genetic guardians or evolved into the role by chance, one thing was clear: the galaxy would never be the same. "Well," he said, turning back to the DNA display, Let's find out exactly what other surprises human genetics has in store for the galaxy. The Galactic Council chamber hummed with tense energy as representatives from 27 species filled the crystalline amphitheater. Dr. Chen stood beside Carax at the central podium, facing the assembled delegates. He couldn't help but notice how many of them were watching him with a mixture of fear and fascination. Honorable representatives, Virax began from his position as the Xylaxian speaker. What we are about to share will change our understanding of galactic evolution forever. The massive display behind them came to life, showing the complex web of genetic connections they had discovered. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as various species recognized their own DNA patterns intertwined with human genetic sequences. As you can see, Chen said, stepping forward, human DNA contains compatible sequences for every known sentient species. These sequences activate naturally through prolonged contact, triggering beneficial evolutionary changes specific to each species. Lies, shouted the Draconid representative, his silicon-based form glittering under the chamber lights. Our species cannot even reproduce with carbon-based life forms. Cracks touched a control, and the display zoomed in on Draconid genetic patterns. 3 days ago, your own scientists reported crystalline structure changes in Draconids working at human mining colonies, changes that made them more resistant to extreme temperatures. The Draconid fell silent, his crystalline surface dimming slightly. We are not here to threaten anyone, Virax continued. We're here because this discovery is too important to hide. Already, thousands of individuals across multiple species are experiencing these changes. The chamber erupted in chaotic discussion. Some representatives showed clear signs of panic, while others leaned forward with obvious interest. Chen noticed several of them exhibiting subtle signs of genetic changes themselves. An Arcturian elder raised her four-fingered hand. If what you say is true, then humans are not natural. They were created for this purpose. Maybe, Chen admitted, or maybe we evolved naturally into this role. The truth is, we don't know. What we do know is that these changes are happening, and fighting them will only cause fear and conflict. Crack stepped forward, her crystalline form glowing with purpose. Look at me. Look at all the changed Xylaxians. We haven't lost our identity. We haven't become human. We've become better versions of ourselves. The Vega Collective representative, a being of pure energy, pulsed with curiosity. Our observers report increased energy manipulation abilities among our young. Is this also because of human contact? Yes, Chen confirmed. Each species develops adaptations that enhance their natural abilities. The changes work with your existing genetic structure, not against it. Suddenly, a small commotion broke out in the upper tiers of the chamber. A young Draconid had stood up, his crystalline form showing obvious signs of change. More changed individuals from various species began standing up throughout the chamber. Delegates, assistants, security personnel. They had infiltrated every level of galactic society. You cannot stop this, Virax declared, his voice carrying through the stunned silence. But you can help guide it. Work with us. Help us understand these changes and use them to benefit all species. The Council's chief administrator, an ancient being from one of the oldest known species, raised her hand for silence. And what of humanity's role in this? If their DNA holds such power, some will seek to exploit it, which is why we propose creating a new division within the Galactic Council. Crax answered. The Department of Evolutionary Affairs, staffed by both humans and representatives from all species experiencing changes. Together, we can study these transformations and ensure they benefit everyone. Chen watched as the chamber slowly shifted from chaos to serious discussion. He could see it in their faces, postures, and energy patterns. The initial fear was giving way to curiosity and possibility. The question isn't whether to allow these changes, he said finally. They're already happening. The question is whether we face them together or let fear drive us apart. As the council began their formal deliberations, Chen felt Carax's hand slip into his. Her skin patterns showed a complex mix of hope and determination. The galaxy was changing, ready or not, and humanity, for better or worse, was at the center of it all.